Good morning, world. Good morning, good morning. I'm here at beautiful Rotary Park here in Casper, Wyoming. It's one of my favorite places to go to unwind, to connect, to just, when things are going crazy in the world, when you just need to clear your mind and you just need to be in God's presence. There ain't no better place to be than his earthly dominion. All the birds, everything's talking, the water's talking, literally living water. I'm telling you, man, God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He woke me up this morning and I put my feet on the ground and he told me some things I got to do this morning. So I'm going to do them. And I hope you hear and you stay and you just enjoy what's going to happen in this journey for me, for you, for all of us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm from Wyoming, born and raised in Wyoming. My whole life, because of the way that I look, I was literally like 0.03% of the population of Wyoming. A little back history from my dad's side. His parents, my grandmother, they were the first black family to homestead in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So my roots are highly rooted here. And I remember that if you go to the census, you can check up some information. I was able to find out and find that I saw my grandma's, one of her brothers, and it said their last name, who he was married to, where they came from, Mississippi. And they created a life here in Wyoming to get away from the Jim Crow South. And on my mother's side, my grandparents come from Texas. Once again, coming from the Jim Crow South, where slavery and all those things is wild. I have an uncle that still has the chains that our ancestors had on their feet when they were brought over here. That's some deep stuff. That's some history. So when I hear my family members talk about the crazy things that they went through, but how God has kept them steadfast, has kept them grounded to the things that are in this world, I know that God's real. I know that God exists. I know that my grandpa, I used to spend summers with my grandpa and my grandma, my mom's parents. And one thing that he told me that I still remember to this day is that he told me, don't believe everything you hear and don't believe everything you see. One thing I will tell you is God is real. And that's all you need to know is God is real. And now that, like, it really hits. Don't believe everything you hear. Because just like we know as kids, as children, that game telephone, I could say one thing, but 5 seconds later, if someone was there, they'll say what I said, but won't give you the full words, the full everything of what I had said. And that's how the world is. I can say God is good, and then someone can say, I don't believe in God. Or I can say God is good, and they'd be like, well, what God are you believing? I know what God I believe in. I believe in God that created this earth. No Big Bang. He created all this beauty behind me. You can't tell me that God is not great. Look at that behind me. A waterfall. God is great. God is good. God created all this. And we just gotta know that God is there. He's there for all of this beauty behind me. He's there for you. He's there for me. Now I get back to my story. I spent summers with my grandparents. I spent summers with my mom's parents. And I learned a lot of many things, along with the many stories that they told me. And the thing about my mom's parents is they did good for themselves as black people. You know, they owned property. They owned a trailer park. One thing I remember very much about my grandpa is he had a little place where, you know, people would be hanging out, listening to music, and then just jiving, and the jukebox is playing. And I remember for the life of me, man, like the song that I remember hearing all the time was Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. Man, that is an album that brings me back to my childhood like crazy. Just, you know, it's of the secular world, but it's something that if I listen to, it'll bring me back as a child, back to those days when I was at my grandparents' house and just, you know, just being a kid. And I will say that my grandparents did the best as they could. My mom is one of 9. So I got a lot of aunties and uncles, which means I got a lot of cousins. And I did learn from being a child. I learned that sex was a sin because I had many cousins that got pregnant early at a young age. And, you know, that's a story of life to many of us, you know, and nothing against it. It's just something that we learn from. And, you know, I had uncles that was like, man, see, that's what happens when you do the deed. That's what happens when you do what you're not supposed to do. And once again, those things didn't hit. It really didn't hit until later on in life. But being there as a kid, those things were molded in me. Those are things that shaped me to the man that I am. So, you know, summers with my grandparents, being sowed, knowing that they had faith, knowing that they had strong faith. I talk about my mom, and she tells me about how they would go back down to Texas because my grandfather was a sharecropper, so she could smell the cotton. Like, smell the cotton. And she talked about the lynching trees, about how when she was in certain places down south, you could literally feel the spirits of those that lost their lives due to being hung because of the way that the South was, because the way that they didn't want to see a people rise. I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I said, it's pretty crazy how our United States was built. You have people that came over here because they were doing religion an unorthodox way, as well as people that were just trying to escape wars and being mistreated and everything. But this United States was built off of sinister ideas and plots to come to a land, come to a place that's already inhabited by millions of people, and to slaughter them, to wipe them away, to almost make them obsolete on this planet. That's some dark stuff. You can't tell me that if their God said to do it, that's the God that we truly trust in. It's crazy how our United States was built off of hatred, off of sin, off of death. And then we wonder why, We got so many crazy things going on in this world. It's strange to me how people don't see that correlation of a lot of the things that go on in our world, in our society. Yes, that's a strong root that has to be chopped out, pulled out, and cut up. But with that came hatred and animosity towards those that look different than them. And one thing I know about the 13th Amendment is that that was utilized to take captive back those freed slaves that had been free, because guess what? We can make them still do work, but we don't have to pay them. Thus, the whole system of the police was built off of hatred. And I have nothing against my brothers in blue, but if they know where their roots truly came from, racism and hatred. It just hurts to know that just because you're different, you get treated a different way. Because I sound different, I don't sound like how I look. I hear that all the time. God made me the way that I'm supposed to be. God made you the way that you're supposed to be. So I'm looking for my bag. Oh, see, got my microphone. Had to get my little microphone because we're going to be getting close to the waterfall. But going back to just a little bit about me, having those summers with my grandparents was very beneficial. And that's something that a lot of youth and adults my age didn't get. Even people older than me didn't get. Is that opportunity to be so with the elders, the older people, and hear their stories, hear their wisdom. Just like in the Bible, if you read the Bible, there's stories that we should learn from so that we don't make those mistakes. The stories that my grandparents told me was to hopefully make sure that I would not make those same mistakes. To make sure that if there was something good that came upon the story that they were telling me, that I would know that that was because of God, or that was because of the hard work and effort that they had put through. But of course, that all came close, and it came in relation to God. God gave them the gift. So, we're getting mic'd up here. Get my Bluetooth connected. And just keep it going. Let me put you guys right here real quick. Like I said, we're getting ready to go by the waterfall. So, got to make sure y'all can hear. But me as a young child, I got to spend time with my grandparents. I got to spend time with my dad's parents. And it's pretty crazy that, I'm one of those people that my dad wasn't in the picture. That could be you. Your dad wasn't in the picture. Then I had my dad pop into the picture when I was like 9 years old. I remember. And he had came down and he brought a gift and all these promises that we're going to be on television on Father and Son Reunite. Now, tell me if that ain't the biggest lie. You're going to tell your son, we're going to be on television saying Father and Son Reunite. So right then and there, like, all right, I'm a kid. I don't really know who you are, but I'm hearing what you're saying. But I got to see it to believe it. And a season would pass, another season would pass, and I never saw him again until I was 15. But I will say that my grandma, his mom, I spent summers with her. And I remember one time I went to the movies with one of my friends, and I got back at 6 o'clock, probably like 6:05, 6:10. My grandma already had the doors locked. She had my Mickey Mouse luggage outside, and I was no longer allowed to stay at her home. Now we're talking a 9-year-old kid getting kicked out of his grandma's house because he got home late from the movies at 6 o'clock. That's how hard my grandma was, but it didn't really make me. Luckily, my mom's parents, my grandpa and grandma, they were the other block down. They were just across, a block across, and I was able to go there. But it didn't really hit home to me until later on in life. And I think about it because I remember the day before we were watching news, and that's when Rodney King was going on. Literally on the news, we're seeing Rodney King being beat by police officers almost to death. My grandma's on the phone. She's got family in LA because they continue the migration from Wyoming to LA during the Great Migration. And she's on the phone with family in LA. And they're like, the city is on fire. The city is on fire. You got to pray for these people. You got to pray for everyone. And once again, that didn't really hit home until I became an adult. And that really didn't hit home until I wrote my second book, when I was working through some things. Now, one thing that you may not know about me is that I have written some books. My first one, I don't like to give it the credit, but I did what I did. So I'll testify to you guys that I wrote a erotic novel. Why? Because I was trying to be like 50 Shades of Grey. I was trying to live that lifestyle. And where did it get me? It didn't get me nowhere. Besides, I became a man that was divorced. I became a man that was, I was, I was chained to my flesh and my ratchet ways. And I'd always look back at that and be like, well, at least I was honest with them. I told them what it is if we were doing what we were doing. And that ain't right. So I don't like to give that book no glory, but I will say that I did write one. And that's part of my testimony. I try to be in this world and try to be something that I wasn't. And I wrote another one just recently, and that helped me get through my process of what happened to me as a child, and it helped me understand many things. And like I said, when I was at my grandma's house, before she kicked me out, we watching the news and Rodney King's being beat. Now, I write my second novel, and that's when it truly hits me. My grandma didn't kick me out because I was bad. She kicked me out because during that time, black kids, men that looked like me, boys that looked like me weren't safe after it was dark. So she was worried for me to be out late at night. And she didn't want those problems on her shoulders. So she just gave it to the next person, which was my grandparents, my mom's parents. Now I have a lot of great stories about my grandma, my dad's mom. And she told me back in Wyoming, back in Cheyenne, in those days where they lived, just imagine the red line in your town where you see the rich people live on that side, but everybody else is on this side. She tells us stories about how the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Germans, the English, the Italians, the French, the Hispanics, and the blacks all lived in harmony. In harmony. Why? Because they all had the same dream, just to give their children a better life. Pretty crazy, right? Think about it now. It ain't that way. We still had the red lining, but we forgot the thing is that we are here to give our children a better life and let them know about God and let them walk their walk in their purpose that God gave them. So those summers with my grandparents, I say I learned a lot. And I was able to put those in my bag of tools for life. And when I say for life, I mean for life. So when there's parents out there that prevent their kids from getting those stories and the memories of their grandparents, don't hold back. That is needed in society still to this day. They did a study with high schoolers and kids in middle school and had them companionship with some people of an old folks home and people just older than them. And at first, the kids was like, man, I ain't gonna learn nothing from this. And then they came back to at the end of the circle and they were like, both people learned so much. And there was a testimony in that, like how this kid was a freshman in high school and he was companioned up with a older lady that had 40 years older than him, and they would just spend one week, like a week, a month together, or a day a month, a day a week, however it was that they were able to get scheduled, and just do what I'm doing right now without technology, just talk and just get to know each other. And to tell you the truth, like, I was listening to the story and I'm like, we need more of this. Because at the end of the story, the kid is now in college and he still talks and communicates to this woman, like, if not every day, every other day. And those are seeds that are watered. Those are relationships that are built. We need more of that in community. We need more of that in our society. I'm tired of seeing young kids disrespect old people. I'm tired of just seeing young kids being disrespectful to their parents, to the teachers. The teachers already have a hard enough job doing their job. So if you're a parent that ain't keeping if you a parent and you the head of the house and you're not doing your job disciplining, then your kid's gonna be out of society being unruly, and then they're gonna be in the school being unruly, and then there's gonna be kids that are actually doing they're doing their job. I tell my kids, you in school to learn, you in school to listen, you in school not to make the teachers a hard job, to give them a hard time. So there's kids that are out there that do that. Parents think that school is a daycare. School is not a daycare. School is a place to learn. And if you have a child that is being unruly, then it becomes a domino effect to the other students that are in the class trying to learn. And then you get kids like my kids that are like, I don't even want to go to school because, oh, so and so, he's always acting up, getting sent to the teachers, getting sent to the principal's office, but it ain't like anything ever happens. And oh, guess what? If they call their parents, they ain't even afraid of their parents. Man, if a teacher would have told me back in my day that I'm going to call your mama, nope. If a neighbor would have said, I'm about ready to call your mama, I see what you do. Nope. I have a friend, a good friend of mine, like, this place we in high school, I want to say my freshman year, we made a movie here. And it was kind of like a little horror movie, but his mom, I would come and visit whenever I'd come down here because I was far away from here for a while. And she was like, I can tell you one thing. You were always a good, quiet kid. And I was like, you know why? Because if my mom found out I did something, it'd be on like Donkey Kong. And I didn't want that. I know some people say corporal punishment, spankings, and all that stuff don't work. I've been spanked probably 5 times in my life. And each time I deserved it. I remember one time I came home late. Once again, breaking the rules, man. Can't be coming home late. My mom, my friend lived right behind the park, and we outside playing, and we playing tag or whatever it is. And I see my mom drive through the alley, and I'm like, oh snap. I'm one of them kids. My mom gave me a watch like every birthday, and I happened to lose it. I had no sense of time, and I thought I could beat my mom home. As soon as they got past the alley, I ran as fast as I could home, as fast as I could. And it was dark. And when I got home, I like, oh, I made it. I didn't see the car. I was like, I made it. I opened that door, and my mom, she way darker than I am. She probably like 5'6", and she threw my big butt across the living room and said, "Don't ever be late again." These things do make sense to me as an adult now, because being the skin color that I am and being a man, being a young man, it's scary out there for the things that they may try to do or put on you and saying that you did something. So I truly understand. And I hope that somebody gets this. And I hope that whoever's watching this gets that, because when you out in the, I try to tell my daughter this, when she learned from driver's ed class, you ain't out, you're not supposed to be out past a certain time unless you're working. After that, only bad things happen. Bars are open, clubs are open, but are you of that age? So what do you have? What's your purpose of being out at night, 11 o'clock at night, if you ain't working? There ain't nothing good going on at 11 o'clock at night if you ain't working. But like I say, I'm just here. Hey man, what's up? Red. I don't know. I don't. I see what you're saying, but you know, I'm just out here giving my testimony, man. Just telling a little story of where I come from, my cloth, Wyoming, and how I've always been grounded and connected with God. And when I was born, my mom told me that she gave me to God. She said, use with him, do with him as you choose. Do with him what you need. And that was what my mom did when I was born. So like I say, I done walked some crazy walks in my life. I done some stupid things, but we've all done stupid things. But one thing that I will say is God is real. How do I know? The beauty that he creates. It's the sounds is amazing, and I hope you can hear, like I say, that's that living water. That's that beauty that God gives us. We have the opportunity to see beautiful things like this, man. And just give my testimony as a young kid going through the things that I did. I tend to be drawn to those that have been hurt. Why? Because I was hurt as a child. My mom met a man that, you know, he did his thing. And I write about it in my second book. And I was left home alone with him, and I was taken advantage of sexually. I was doing sexual favors for a man. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was 10 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, and like it really put a scar on me. It really cut me open deep. And after that had happened, I didn't want to even be home alone anymore. I didn't want to be home with him. I didn't want to be home at all, because home was supposed to be where you're supposed to be safe. And You know, piece of my testimony is I was 10 years old. That happened to me. It might have happened to you. Like I say, I'm drawn to people that have been through the same struggle, the same scar in life, whether it's being sexually abused as a child or just being abused as a child. And the crazy part is, I tell people this sometimes, but I'm going to tell y'all, I was a 10-year-old boy being sexually abused, doing sexual favors for a man. And because I thought that was right, there was a neighborhood kid down the street I did the exact same thing to, not knowing that it was wrong because he was doing it to me. So I thought it was something that you were supposed to do to another dude. Once again, I'm 10 years old. But luckily, God was there. God was there. And this is what I know for a fact. His parents called the police, which I'm so grateful and thankful for, of what I did to their son. 10-year-old boy. I'm a 10-year-old boy now. You got to remember that. I'm a 10-year-old boy. So a 10-year-old boy doing things with another 10-year-old boy because I was being abused sexually by a man that knew better, but I didn't know better. So I was doing this as a 10-year-old boy to another boy on my neighborhood. And his parents called the cops. Cops is knocking at my door. My mom answers the door. They talked to her about some things, and I knew then. I could hear the conversation, what was going on, what had been, you know, brought up in the conversation. And I knew then that that was wrong. Why? One, the police was there. So I definitely knew what had been going down was wrong. And I stopped that. And I thank God for his parents doing exactly what a parent should do when your kid is being sexually mishandled or abused. And I'm off subject and off topic here, but that was one of the things that really connected me to Breno, one of the artists that I got was able to bring down here. And I kind of confessed to him, I was like, he has a song called Jesus Saved Me. Jesus did save me. And I told Breno, Kate Diamond was there. And I was like, Breno, I got something to tell you, man. I'm like, I was that boy. I'm sorry. I was that boy. In his song, he's talking about how he was sexually mishandled by a neighbor. That song is a very good song, and I highly suggest you to listen to it because Jesus did save me. His parents saved me. That boy's parents saved me by calling the cops, calling the authorities because something was going on with their kid. They was in their rights. They was in their rights to do what they did. And like I said, me as a 10-year-old boy, knowing that police was at my house and they were talking to my mom. I don't know. I don't know the conversation that they had with her, but I know what they were saying. And I knew what I was doing was wrong. And then I knew what was happening to me was wrong. For a man to take advantage of a 10-year-old boy, me, a 10-year-old boy taking advantage of me while my mom was out working. Well, I did everything in my way to not be drawn to men because no, that wasn't right. So I took my sexual frustrations out on women, which are somebody's daughters. And that's one thing. God will, give you something to make you truly understand what this world's all about. And God gave me daughters. And anytime that I talk to young kids, I'm like, if you gonna be, don't mess with the girl's feelings. Don't mess with the person's feelings. We're still learning. We're still growing as people, as children of God. So if you don't know yourself, how are you going to get yourself in a relationship with somebody if you truly don't know yourself? And if you don't know yourself, you got to dive into the Bible. And I can guarantee you, you will find yourself. You will find your purpose. Good morning. I'm just here giving a little bit of my testimony. Um, I was just talking about how, as a child, 10 years old, I was sexually mishandled and abused by my mom's boyfriend while she was at work. Crazy things were going on behind the closed doors. And I did the exact same thing to a kid down the street when I was 10 years old. And the police came knocking on the door, and that's when I knew that it was wrong. So once again, I thank God that his parents were good parents and they did the right thing by calling the authorities at that time. Because if I wouldn't have known, if that door wouldn't have knocked and those police would have been at the door, I may have continued going down a deep, deep, dark, dark place. So I truly do thank God that he did save me. And like I said, Breno has a song called Jesus Saved Me. And I confessed and testified to Breno that I was that child. But there might be someone here that was that child on either side of the fence. They may have been sexually abused. They may have been the person that was the one that was getting it, the one that was receiving it, whatever it be. But you got to look at the root of where that came from. That root came from my mom's boyfriend that was doing it to me. I was a 10-year-old boy, not knowing what was wrong or right. And then I happened to go down the street and try and do that on the neighborhood kid, which was totally wrong. That was one thing. I've repented for my sin. And I'm truly grateful that God did save me. But that sexual abuse caused porn addiction. It caused addiction. I had lust built up in me crazy. I was never active in high school. I wasn't even active. Okay, so I was a late bloomer, as they say, but I was supposed to be a late bloomer. God knew that because of the scar from the sexual abuse as a 10-year-old. And I'm not boasting to brag when it comes to I was a late bloomer, and I I was awoken to sin at 18 by someone that was much older than me, and she showed me things that I didn't even know existed, and that's on a sexual, personal relationship level. And once again, that's me at an 18-year-old. I write that in one of my books. You're gonna have to find it yourself. Like I said, I don't like to, give any of those the glory because I give God the glory to where I'm at right now. And the sexual addiction, the lust in my heart, I was married and I had lust in my heart. And I remember before I was married, I was we was doing it wrong. We were in the same house. We was sinning, and I was working my jobs, and I was a coal miner by day, DJ by night, and I had these ladies come to me while I'm DJing, and this was the first time like I really saw Like when I look back at it, it was really the devil working. And you see two ladies, they invite you to do something, go to their hotel room, and I was like, oh, all right, I'm about ready, do something that people dream of. Not thinking I'm young. I was in my 20s. I wasn't married yet, but we were living in the same home and go to this hotel.